This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to the Young Wealth Show, where you'll truly learn how to make, spend, and invest money for an awesome life. Get the real-life stuff that wasn't part of your school curriculum. Young Wealth gives you innovative new ways of dealing with your finances, as well as the skills and tools you're going to need to survive and be successful out on your own. Let the Young Wealth Show be your GPS to take you from clueless to clued in. Here's your host, Jason Hartman, with Young Wealth.
It's my pleasure to welcome Nick Loper to the show. He is the founder of Side Hustle Nation and the host of the Side Hustle Nation podcast. He's the #1 best-selling author of The Side Hustle, How to Turn Your Spare Time into $1,000 a Month or more, and Buy Buttons, the fast track strategy to make extra money and start a business in your spare time, and Work Smarter, 500 plus online resources today's top entrepreneurs use to increase productivity and achieve their goals. Nick, welcome. How are you?
Jason, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, and you're coming to us from Northern California. So what are some of the best opportunities for people to earn extra income nowadays? This is a good topic for the times we're in, certainly.
You bet. So first of all, creating self-published books with extremely long subtitles. Awesome way to go. I like the self-publishing route. The big three that Side Hustle Nation really focuses on are kind of the freelancing, service-based businesses, low overhead. What can I start today? What problem can I solve for clients? Or even going down the agency model of like, how do I play matchmaker between problems and customers and service providers? That's one. Number two would be the online business model, blogs, podcasts, YouTubes, like content-based businesses where ultimately you're going to monetize with advertising, affiliate income, your own products and services down the road. And then the third would be an e-commerce business model, Amazon, eBay, product flipping. Again, some low overhead ways to get started in each of those. But those are the three that tend to pop up over and over again through the archives.
Good stuff. Well, I definitely want to make sure we get a little bit of time today to talk about these 500 plus resources because, there's just so much out there nowadays. And if you can share any of those, tips, ideas, best websites or software products, whatever, please make sure we get to a little bit of that. But first of all, maybe let's take a little bit deeper dive into these three categories of businesses and wherever you want to start.
Well, let's start with some of the lowest barriers to entry. And I think, if you're looking to make money quickly, I think your best bets are either the product flipping model, like the, go find stuff at garage sales, yard sales, estate sales, and even take something from the free section of Craigslist, put it on Facebook Marketplace. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect in the demographics between those marketplaces right now. I met a woman who had effectively flipped $50 for her first purchase into $10,000 in sales on eBay and Facebook Marketplace. You start with whatever investment you're comfortable with, buy low, sell high, right? It's been around for generations. I think that's a very
so what was that? Way. I've just got to ask everybody. I bet is curious, Nick. What is that? What was that product? That example you just shared?
What was their 50-cent thing? I've got to go look it up. But okay. One of the stories that she shared with me was focusing on, because a lot of people talk about, I'll flip clothes on Poshmark or, just kind of you're making $5-10 a piece. What she focused on for the bulk of those sales was much larger items. And she shared the story of flipping a motorcycle sidecar for like $3,000 or $4,000, picked it up, secondhand, of course. And it was just like, I had so many questions like, well, how you can't just roll up to the post office to ship this thing across the country. And she's like, honey, you just roll up to the back of the grocery store. They'll give you a free pallet and then you got to build some walls on it. And you call up your freight shipping depot and then, they stick it on the back of a truck that's going across the country. I was like, I would have not known any of this stuff, but it's fascinating. So I'll look up and I'll get you for the show notes what her 50-cent purchase was because I think
I'm just curious. But anyway, the point of you buy it wholesale, you sell it retail, right? Simple concept.
Yes,
we're all familiar with. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, so she's done really well with that. The other option if you are in the, like, I got to make money quickly mode, is the freelancing or service-based business. And this could be freelance writing. This could be, the graphic design, any of the online type of, remote virtual work type of side hustles. Or it could be lawn mowing, gutter cleaning, mobile car detailing, and stuff like that. We've had people do really well with some of these local offline businesses. And in fact, I'm probably more excited about the offline options right now for a couple reasons. And the first is that, the market demand continues to grow as people become more and more specialized and limited in their own hours. Just saying, like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just want this problem to go away. A guest on the show started a pooper scooper business and she had like 80 something recurring weekly customers, recurring revenue, very predictable, hire people to go out and on the route and do this stuff. And I was inspired by that. So
you're saying just a dog pooper scooper business, not a gardening business, because usually the gardeners pick up the dog poop, right?
I don't know. Maybe the gardeners didn't in her area, but it was
no. I mean, or maybe she didn't really have a lawn. Right? Maybe there's just, rocks in the yard or sand or something. And so that's interesting. This would become a specialty. I mean, that's just what's funny about it. That there's a poop picker upper special. You got to have a specialist for this nowadays, right?
Yes. Yeah. So somebody gave me the stat that 20 years ago, only 5% of people hired out like a lawn mowing service to come do this for them. And today that is closer to 40%. And so it's just this continued specialization of labor. I don't want to deal with it. It's not how I want to spend my free time. So I'm going to hire that out. And so I think that's one of the elements that's exciting there. The other element that's exciting is from the competition front. In most medium to small sized towns, the competition is still operating like it's a generation ago in terms of their internet savvy, in terms of how they're marketing. And so you can come in with a little bit of proactive effort, get yourself onto the first page of Google, get yourself some Google reviews, and be off to the races. Like, I met another guest on the show who had a knife sharpening business, similar, like, local service-based business. Yeah, I could do it myself, but hey, there's a guy who's a professional right here in town. He'll do it. He's got 100 positive reviews. Let's make this work. So those are the areas where I would start looking if you're in that I gotta make money quickly mode.
Okay, so so what category is that called again? Then is that that's not the content category?
No, so I would call that kind of the e-commerce or product flipping category. That's option number one, and then the service-based.
And why is that the quickest?
It's just because you don't have to build an audience. You don't have to necessarily even build a product. It's just, you could stick your flag in the sand and say, hey, Nick Loper, gutter cleaner, available for hire, right? And connecting with your peers and neighbors on local Facebook groups, on Nextdoor, flyers on the mailbox, low overhead, low barrier to entry, and kind of quick to see your first customers there.
Okay, good stuff. All right. What's next?
The other model, and the model that I've been most involved with for the last 15 or so years, is the online, call it the audience-based business model, where you need to create a helpful resource that is usually in the form of content, blog, podcast, YouTube videos type of stuff. But it could also be in the form of, like, Google is an example of an audience-based business. Hey, they built a helpful resource. Facebook is an example of an audience-based business that ultimately is monetized with advertising and stuff. For me, my original side hustle was a footwear comparison shopping site. Wasn't heavy on the content front, but it was heavy on kind of the data processing and telling people where they could find the best price on their next pair of shoes, and integrating different, coupons at the product level and all sorts of nerdy stuff. But it relied heavily on, attracting viewers to this site, in my case, through ads, mostly through Google ads.
So the audience-based part of the business. Any other ideas in that category? That's what we do, and we've done, extremely well with it. I highly recommend that business. There's certainly a lot of people in it, though. There's no question that there's a lot of people looking for a limited amount of attention span out there, right?
It is. There's more competition for limited attention than probably ever before. And on the one hand, like, if we give podcasting as one example in this space, as we're both podcasters here. The landscape has certainly changed over the last 5, 6, 7 years in podcasting. The exciting thing here is that half the population still doesn't know what a podcast is. And that to me is, maybe some people are discouraged by that. To me, that's like, oh, there's still a tremendous level of growth still in this industry. Right. And the other trend that we've probably seen is the introduction of big money, big media. So now you have ESPN and NPR and the New York Times, like everybody, like these big media companies have their own podcasts now, which is awesome because they bring new listeners into the fold. But as a solo producer, that's what you're up against in people's earbuds. So you have to maintain a certain level of quality. You're not going to be able to compete on, having a production staff of 14 people, but you can compete on unique and compelling content and try and build a following through, from the ground up on that, in that medium. I still think there's a rosy future for the future of podcasting.
That's interesting because when I started podcasting back way in the day, about 16 years ago, I mean, nobody knew what a podcast was back then. And, I got to tell you something.
You're one of the originals, for sure.
I was very early in the game, yeah. And I kick myself for not appreciating it enough back then, because I think had I understood the magnitude of what it would become, I would have treated it with more, respect. And it's worked out very well. I mean, I bet my different podcasts have probably produced about $20 million in revenue over the years, maybe more. Wow. Well, probably more than that, actually. But, it's been a great run, but I think had I known it would have become so big, celebrity studded, if you will, star studded. Right. I would have really realized how big the opportunity was. And it's interesting what you say, because you say, half the people still don't relate to it. And, I can attest to that. Nobody related to it back then. But even now, people, like a podcast. Yeah, I've heard of a podcast. I know what it is. But how do I get to it? They just don't relate to that type of media yet. And so that means there's a lot of market share left to come into the space.
It is exciting. I mean, it's a convoluted space because there's no, dominant app link destination, right? Where it's like, hey, I have a YouTube channel. Like everybody understands oh, I can go to YouTube and find your thing, versus okay, do I already have a podcast app? How do I get this thing on my phone? That said, once you have somebody in your earbuds, or rather you're in their earbuds, and your content is good enough that they stick around and they spend 30, 40 minutes with you week after week after week, that's a really powerful relationship to build. Sure. Much more so than what I've experienced on the blogging front of I can create something and hopefully it hits on the first page of Google, but okay, so somebody finds it. They, scroll through your bullet points and then they're done. They're out the door in 3 minutes. Right. And it's just not as, definitely not as engaged an audience.
I agree. Okay. What else? Anything else on the content space you want to talk about?
I mean, the big thing that I'm probably most excited about on the content space for new content creators, obviously I love podcasting. I still think there's tremendous opportunity there, but video, YouTube seems to be the place to go. And the wildcard factor that YouTube has in its favor that podcasting doesn't is this viral element, this element of, hitting the algorithm just right and somehow skyrocketing your channel. And it's a little bit of a lottery. It's a little bit of a crapshoot, right? But if you put your best foot forward. And what I like about YouTube, in contrast to podcasting, is it's a much better discovery platform, search and intent, keyword driven. What problem can I solve for people? How can I answer their specific question in a way that makes sense in video format? Even if it's just talking head, even if it's just screen share video. One of my best performing videos, it's years and years ago, was how to create a folder in Gmail or something. Mm-hmm. And it still collects views. It still collects ad dollars every month. So, video is an angle that I would pay attention to going forward. And going forward, I might go back and, redo the podcast as a video podcast and slice it up and do all the fun stuff to answer specific questions in there.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. So the third major category.
That was a three. That was the e-commerce product flipping stuff. That was and you can go down private label and building your own brand and all that stuff in that category. There was the service-based businesses, the freelance-based businesses.
Got it.
And then category 3 is that online audience-based business.
Right. And so which is the longest ramp up? Is it the audience business?
For me, it definitely was. I mean, some people could hit it viral out of the gate, especially, celebrities are coming on with, podcasts, and they got, millions of listeners right away. For most people, probably not realistic. It was a long, slow burn in my case. And so that's the reason, it's the most potentially lucrative and time leveraged business model down the road, but it's not, at least in my case, not super quick to that money milestone. Like, I'm not going to see revenue quickly going down here, but it's a labor of love, and you're producing something that you believe is genuinely helpful and ought to be out there in the world.
Sure. Good stuff. Can you talk to us about some of these resources? In your book, you talk about 500 plus online resources. Give us a little taste of some of that.
Oh my goodness. So the latest version of that is probably 5 or 6 years old at this point. So I would point instead to I would love to do an updated version, because it's like, the pace of change and everything. I'll give you some of my tools that I live by on a daily basis. The first is LastPass as a password management type of tool. No, I cannot express my love deeply enough for LastPass, and just not having to remember all that stuff, clutter up brain cells with that.
Yep.
Text Expander is something that I use on a daily basis to, create your own keyboard shortcuts for different snippets. Schedule Once has been outstanding for me in terms of, scheduling podcast interviews and not having the 5 email back and forth of like, well, does this time work for you? What time's good for you? I'm trying to think what else. And these were in the book as well. Otter.ai is a new one for me.
Yep, we use Otter.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For transcription, I was just making sure I had the extension correct there. ActiveCampaign is my email service provider. I believe it's the best bang for your email marketing and marketing automation buck. It's amazingly powerful software for a low price. Copy, I don't know. This is one called, I forget what it's called. It's either called ClipX or CopyClip, I want to say is maybe the Mac equivalent, but it's a clipboard manager where it saves the last 25 things that you copy. Use this all day, every day. So that's a helpful one.
What is that? CopyX? I'm going to use that. I need that.
I think CopyClip is the Mac version.
CopyClip, thanks.
Is the Windows version.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Good stuff. Well, yeah, there's so many tools out there. What would you like to say to the person who's, discouraged about, the things that are going on in the world? Maybe they've lost their job or they feel like they're on the verge of it. They're really a lot more empowered than they think they are sometimes, right?
They are. I mean, a friend of mine kind of compared it to, especially early pandemic, where the market dropped 30%, is like, this is the fastest decline since the Great Depression. And the difference between then and now is, we're not seeing a run on the banks. We could still work from home. We still have all these opportunities, whereas 100 years ago, it's like, well, what are we going to do? The way that I would frame it is to think of side hustles in general, business in general, really life in general, it's an experiment. Like, give yourself permission to put on that scientist lab coat, try something out. If it fails, great. Like if the proverbial test tube blows up in your face, that's not what was supposed to happen. That's not what you thought would happen, but it's hopefully not life threatening. And I found that's really empowering for me and for a lot of Side Hustle Nation readers and listeners to just try something out. Like, oh, what would happen if I got up at 5:30 in the morning? What would happen if I wrote 500 words every day? Like, what happens if I put in this consistent daily practice? Or hey, what happens if I raise my hand, put myself out there as the pooper scooper, gutter cleaner, mobile car detailer?
Couldn't agree more.
And it just opens up the whole world to you. And if you find out you don't like it, no harm, no foul, dust off, try the next thing.
Just do something else. Yeah. It's really not that big a commitment. Nick, give out your website.
SideHustleNation.com is the best place to find me. Of course, we'd love to have you tune into the Side Hustle Show as well.
Good stuff. Nick Loper, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss